can you just start by laying out these charges for us?
Well, he's been, he's going to be sentenced for evading, breaking bail, and avoiding the English court. And of course, but they're really trying to extradite him to the U.S. And I think this has been all worked out in advance. So the U.S. will file for extradition, but they will file charges based on a conspiracy to actually hack. In the WikiLeaks case a long time ago in 2010, when he leaked documents by Chelsea Manning. And that was a whole big scandal in itself. Now, they're not saying that they're not charging him with releasing the documents because he claims to be a journalist. So they're trying to avoid that controversy of whether he's an actual journalist or not. So what they're saying is he actively tried to get this crack this password and did so to help Chelsea Manning download all these documents. So that's what they're charging him with.
So I'm glad you just touched on this. There's a lot of different labels for Julian Assange, and similar to Chelsea Manning, very polarizing figure. Some say he's a journalist, some say he's a cyber terrorist, a hero, villain. And the judge actually called him a narcissist today in the hearing. So what is he, and how is that likely to shape his case?
Well, narcissism is not illegal, but certainly there's been this controversy, in the modern age where you have all these lines being blurred between, bloggers and journalists and activist groups like he is. He claims to be a activist for government transparency, forced transparency, and of course all these governments were very alarmed at the time that he did this back in 2010, particularly the U.S. government, because all this stuff that came out was one of the biggest leaks in U.S. history, and it involved information on the Afghanistan and Iraq war, which was unflattering to the U.S. government. So they want to get him, but they have to. In the United States, we have First Amendment, which protects journalists and freedom of speech and that sort of thing. And so that's why they're not, indicting him on that, because he could probably claim some legitimacy as a journalist, although many journalists, mainstream journalists, might not agree. But this is saying he actively helped Chelsea Manning, who was back then an employee of the U.S. Army, a uniformed military person, crack this password so that Chelsea Manning could download on this, just dump all these embassy cables and everything else. These were classified materials that the U.S. government didn't want anybody to know.
So what is his defense team? What are they up against? And how could they likely play this? It seems that they're going very much the journalism route, but also, I hate to give you a double-barreled question here, but how is this likely to play out for him?
Well, they'll probably use the political defense. Extradition treaties usually prevent people from forcibly being extradited for political crimes. Now, what is a political crime? Well, his co-conspirator, if there is a conspiracy proven, is Chelsea Manning, and he was court-martialed in the Army for Espionage Act, and that's a political crime. So his lawyers, that is to say, Assange's lawyers, probably say, well, he was conspiring with this guy who was making a political crime, so you can't extradite him for political crimes.
And you actually had before this, you had just touched on a quick point. We only have a few more seconds on this. That this could perhaps that the U.S. government may want to use him to fish for Russian hackers, right?
Right, exactly, because he, of course, also put out the Russian hacking of the DNC and Hillary Clinton's emails. So they might want to use this indictment as leverage to squeeze more information out of him. He can't be extradited for that, at least right now, but Britain could waive the extradition treaty, and if they did find something that he could be indicted on in the Russian matter, he could if Britain agreed. And I think Britain might agree to that.
Interesting.